Welcome to Plugging Away, CODA's podcast where we bring you in-depth discussions on the world of oil and gas decommissioning. My name is Pawel Rybczynski and I'm the brand and communications lead here at CODA. It's December 12th and this will be our final episode for the year. We've made it to the end of the year, Francis.
We have, sort of, almost.
So I'm sitting here with our CEO, Francis Norman, here at the Centre of Decommissioning Australia, and as a final episode, I think it's only right that we discuss the year that was.
Yeah, it was a year. It was a big year, that's for sure. Yes. Yeah, lots to talk about.
So really, I guess my first question then is 2025. If you had one way to describe it, what would it be?
One way.
Or one word. Your
One
choice.
word. One word would be hectic. I think the way I would describe 2025 for the industry here would be one of increasing maturity. I think the industry here through this year is really starting to come to terms and come to grips with the challenges and the complexity and the reality, if you like, of decommissioning. It's been building for a while. Last year, I think some organisations would have started to see sort of what was going on here, but I think this year particularly has been a year when a lot of that has really hit home for a lot of organisations right through the spectrum of the work. And for us as well, it's been a very full year. We've had a lot going on. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot we won't even get time to talk about as well here today.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we'd need more than an hour to discuss everything that we've done.
But
that does lead perfectly, I guess, into the next question, which is, it has been a year of many accomplishments. We've had 2 intro to decommissioning courses. We've had the DNA, which was the largest one ever. Waste disposal pathways reports and the accompanying database we've released. We've had 3 inaugural special interest groups, Northern Territory study, and from my end, we've also had a brand refresh. I'm sure I've missed a few things there as well, but out of all the milestones that we've had this year,
look, the ones that strike me as being significant or continuing significant, certainly from the ones you mentioned, the last 2 iterations of the Intro to Decom course. This is the 5th and 6th times we've run this course now. We're still getting 30 to 40 participants each time from right across the industry. And the course itself has matured and is very well recognised, and is really helping new entrants to the industry get up to speed a little more quickly than they would do if they had to do it organically themselves. The DNA conference this year was its 4th cycle. When you think that first time it was run in 2022, we had 70 people in the basement of one of the hotels here in Perth. This year we had well in excess of 400 people at the Crown Convention Centre. A 2-day conference, full day of single stream on day 1, split streams on day 2, and a very large and very, very well put together and very well attended exhibition space as well. It's really turned into a flagship conference, not just here in Australia, but globally. I would say it's one of the better conferences now in the decommissioning space. The waste report was great, really useful piece of information. The database itself is something that I think over time will get more and more and more use as we see more and more material emerge from the tail end of the decommissioning works that we've got going on. The special interest groups are a particularly interesting one. We weren't really sure how they would go, and the indication so far is that they're going very well. They provide a really good platform for a lot of our partner members, individuals, to come together to talk about the areas that are of special interest to them, and seeing that start to work has been great. Working with our friends in the Northern Territory is always a pleasure, and the study in the ports up there has been, I think, will be really useful for them and for companies looking to use the port as they go into the future and for the planning around that infrastructure. I'll get to the brand refresh in a minute. The other things that I sort of have noted down myself, other things that we've had that I think are sort of key milestones through the year. We now have a reasonably vibrant International Wells Decommissioning Collaborative, IWDC. This is something we've been working on now with 4 other jurisdictions. So we've got the Net Zero Technology Centre out of Aberdeen. We've got the Danish Technology University in Copenhagen. We've got our friends at Grappa in Stavanger in Norway. And we've got the Petroleum Technology Advisory Centre at PTAC in Alberta in Canada, and ourselves all sharing insights and ideas around ways that we can improve and share how we are improving the ways that we do our well plug and abandonment. And that is such a significant piece of the decommissioning workflow that being able to share that information globally is a big step and a big piece for the industry as a whole. We've had a couple of amazing companies here win awards this last couple of months. BISN won the Golden Gecko Award, which for those dialing in from around the world, the gecko is a lizard over here in Australia. The Golden Gecko is an award which has been given out by the Department of Mines and Petroleum here to they only give 1 or 2 of these a year, and they go to projects or initiatives or technologies that are making a significant difference in the environmental work around our resources industry. They are an incredibly prestigious award and phenomenal achievement for BISN to win that one. And then our friends at Hayes Recycling, Paul, and won the runner-up for Innovator of the Year for the technology that they've got for disassembling of flexibles and umbilicals. So we're starting not just to see decommissioning being an industry in itself, we're also seeing it being recognised externally as well for some of the contributions that it's making. I could go on a lot longer on things. I think the brand refresh, I'll close out on that one on this little question. The brand refresh, I think, is a really important piece for us as an organisation. It shows a maturing of our brand and what we are and who we are. And I think it's something that any organisation like us has to make sure we stay contemporary in terms of how we look and how we project ourselves out into the world. So yeah, lots to talk about there, Pav.
Absolutely. I don't really know where to go after that. There's a few directions. Just quickly, because you did mention DNA, I think it's help potentially listeners might want to know that registrations for the 2026 conference are currently open. So if that's something that you're interested in attending, just Google DNA Oz 2026. It's going to be happening from June 23rd to June 24th. And it will be here in Perth, Western Australia. So definitely one to put in your calendars there. You mentioned the brand refresh and CODA. I think we've just had our 4th birthday, haven't we?
We have 2 days ago.
2 days ago. So we are maturing, and as is the Australian decommissioning industry as a whole. So compared to where we started the year, 2025, how would you describe the position of the Australian decommissioning industry then to now?
Yeah, look, I would go back to my opening comment. I think it is maturing, and it's maturing very rapidly. 5 years ago, when we were getting started with the idea and the concept of CODA, the industry here was very much in a stage of shock and discovery. I think organisations were starting to undertake, in some cases, their first significant decommissioning projects, and starting just to see how complex and how challenging this was. And over the last 5 years, that's really matured, and you can see it now. You can see it in the projects that are underway now. You can see it in the approach from the operators that are executing these projects now. Woodside are really starting to hit their stride with the work they're doing with Stybarrow. That has gone remarkably from over the last 2 years. It's got a ways to go yet, but they're removing significant amounts of material. They've got well plug and abandonment underway. They've got lots and lots and lots going on in there. A very interesting project, and bringing with it both challenges and opportunities that they are working hard on navigating their way through. Chevron have done phenomenal work on Thevenard and are now taking a lot of those learnings from Thevenard into the work that they're embarking on WA Oil. That's a project that's going to run for years and will be not just a decommissioning project, but also an environmental and rehabilitation project as well as it goes forwards. The Exxon work, the Esso work in the Bass Strait, that the planning for that work has been monumental and will continue to be. But the actual project that's going to happen there in 18 months, 2 years' time will be something to behold. Having the pioneering spirit here for such an extended period, moving so much material, so many different lifts, will be just a phenomenal piece of work. And then, we can't forget the Northern Endeavour. They've had a challenging year to get to where they are now, but over the last 12 months, they've suspended now all of the wells. They've flushed all of the umbilicals and risers. They've cut all of that and laid it on the seabed. And then finally, a few months ago, they were able to disconnect completely from station and tow the vessel into Singapore for remedial works before it heads off on its final journey to Denmark. So, what we're seeing here at the head project level is remarkable amounts of work and remarkable amounts of activity. What we're seeing behind that, if you like, in the supply chain and the service sector and the research sector that's starting to get going here as well, is a real enthusiasm and recognition and delivery of technologies and solutions into all of those projects. So I think we're beyond the establishment phase, and we're starting in some areas now to get into a maturity phase in the decommissioning industry here, which is a phenomenal position for us to be in.
Absolutely. So 2 questions from that. One, how does that compare to the global decommissioning industry? And I guess number 2, back to the Northern Endeavour, that was actually going to be my last question. But you recently got to see it in Singapore. What are your reflections there, if you can speak about it?
Yeah, look, how it compares to the rest of the global industry, I think Australia as a jurisdiction, as an execution jurisdiction for this work, is doing as well as practically everywhere else in the world now. The projects we're doing to very, very high standards. We're doing them very efficiently. We're doing them safely, and we are working our way through all of them. We're not a laggard. I would say in some areas we're a leader. We're starting to see some new challenges coming in here, which haven't necessarily appeared at scale in many other jurisdictions in the world. So I think from a global industry perspective, we've got a lot to be proud of here, and we've got a lot to be enthusiastic about here as well going into the future. We are delivering on our promises. The forward outlook that we released last year, that we updated at the beginning of this year, is generally a pretty solid reflection of the actual work that's going on here. And you can't say that about many other places in the world at all. We have a really good picture of what our future workload looks like, and by and large, as time is going forwards, that what it looks like is what's happening. So we've got a very solid and maturing industry here, which is an absolute joy to be a part of and a joy to behold. And the Northern Endeavour is a piece of that. It's been a project with a lot of challenges. The Northern Endeavour itself was the trigger for a lot of the change that we've had here, the situation that happened there. Yep, I did get to go and see the vessel a little while ago. It's reached the end of its life. Let's just put it that way. It's reached the end of its life. It is testament to the quality of engineering that went into the design and build of it to serve the purpose that it did for 20 years, up in the Timor Sea in a very hostile, hot, humid, saline environment. Anything made out of carbon steel in that environment is not going to be there very long before it starts corroding. It is, and it looks that way. It's a vessel that looks like it's been run hard for 20 years. And then for the last 5 years, it's been going through. They've essentially had to go through to make sure that it's stable and strong enough to be transported for disposal. It was very, very, very interesting to see it there. But yeah, there is no other destination that it needs now other than going for recycling. You could not repurpose that vessel for another facility anywhere else. It has to be disposed of, it has to be taken away, and it has to be recycled. And the intent behind all of that will be that the vast majority of the material in there will be recycled. It'll get shipped away. It'll get taken into Denmark into a port. It'll get disassembled there, and then it'll get recycled through that. All I can say is that to get it to the point that it's at now clearly has been an enormous amount of work. I think there will be learnings that will come through from that project that can be shared across the industry that will help not just the Australian industry but the global industry for years to come in terms of what to do and what not to do, how to plan these things, how to move forward. So yeah, it was an amazing experience to have.
Yeah, there was obviously a lot of considerations for the Australian industry as well during that whole process of where we're at, what to do with it, can we do anything with it locally?
Yeah, it's a very emotional space. There are people who would love to see, and I'm one of them, I would have loved to have seen us have the capacity to do all of this work domestically, to do all of our decommissioning works here. But I think the more I've looked into it, the more I've looked at the challenges and the global opportunities and the global facilities for disposal and recycling. I think the floating structures are an outlier in our offshore oil and gas landscape. They were built somewhere else. If they've ever been dry docked, if they've ever gone into a port, it's always been an overseas port. They've never come into a port in Australia. For us to establish and equip a port here to take on the very small number of floating structures that we have from a disposal perspective would be a disproportionate cost to the value of the work. The opportunities here are, though, to make sure that we're equipped here to do everything else. All the subsea equipment, all the flexibles, umbilicals, pipelines, Christmas trees, all the other material that comes out of the ocean, the platforms, the topsides, everything there, all of that material we should be making sure we can bring into Australian ports and we can process domestically for reuse, recycling, and where we can't do anything else with it, for local disposal. And that represents the vast majority of all the material that we've got. And it represents an enormous opportunity for us as an industry as well here. And I think for the big floating structures, they're few, they're far between, they're big, they're complex, they carry an enormous amount of risk, and we don't have a ports ecosystem here that would readily accommodate those particular projects. So I think for them, the best thing for me personally, the best thing for those is that they find a good home somewhere else for them to be disposed of.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of bad places for them to find a home as well. But I think that's a lovely way to put it. Opportunities, rather, for our industry. I was going to ask, what do you see as our biggest gaps? However, I'd like to reframe that. What do you see as the biggest opportunities?
Yeah, look, they're two sides of the same coin. The biggest gaps here, I get asked a lot where the gaps are in the supply chain here. I would stick with the same answer on that. We have one or two solutions to practically every question, every problem that we have, but they're not always the best solution. In some instances, the solutions exist elsewhere and we just haven't managed to bring them to Australia yet. But in other instances, they just don't exist. Or they don't exist in exactly the way that we want them to do. Where I'm seeing one right at the moment is around flexibles and umbilicals. Australia is going to be one of the countries in the next few years removing the largest quantities of these. Ourselves and Brazil, I think, are probably the two. Their volumes are way bigger than ours. These are a different challenge. It's a different category. It's a different kind of material to what we normally see when we think about decommissioning. When you look at all the narratives, you look at all the pictures, you look at everything about decom and its structures and topsides and platforms. And those are the big, glamorous, if you like, pieces that sit within all of this lot. But there is an enormous amount of subsea infrastructure to come out. And here, and as I say in Brazil as well, a lot of that are those incredibly solid, well-built, robust flexibles and umbilicals that we have a large volume of, that we're removing a large volume of, and that we really want to find the most efficient and effective ways to to cut, to remove, to clean, to process, and then ultimately to recycle. And that is both a gap and an opportunity here right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Brazil. You recently, just the other day, did a webinar with Decom Sub.
Yeah.
What were the discussions there around?
Yeah, that was the research end, if you like, around the plastics associated with flexibles and umbilicals. The university there, the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, they have a couple of initiatives running inside that university, doing some really good research work, looking at what they can do with this material. We are fortunate here in Australia as well that one of our operators has shown quite a bit of foresight and has been supporting some early research looking at primarily pyrolysis approaches for the plastics. The plastics are the real problem child in here. The metals are relatively easy. Once you can clean them, they're high grade stainless. They have a good market internationally. The plastics are a challenge. They're built to last. They're built to be very, very, very long lasting in a marine environment, which makes them hard then to recycle. And we have two parallel tracks. The university in Brazil has been doing similar work to the work that's been going on here, incredibly complementary work. And that was really sort of the first toe in the water, if you like, in terms of talking internationally between centres over where we can go next to try and solve some of these very shared problems. Australia and Brazil particularly are two of the first movers in this space. I genuinely believe that in the next 5 to 10 years, this is going to be a problem for a lot of other jurisdictions as well as they get into that phase of their decommissioning and removal. Societally, we're seeing a stronger expectation around the removal of plastics from the ocean where we can, and consequently, we're going to start seeing a lot more of this material come onto the beach, and we need to find ways to process it and to make sure we extract some residual value from it as it goes forwards. So it's a really interesting piece.
That's also not a problem just now, though, is it? Because there's a lot of plastics in offshore wind and things like that.
Oh, there's
as well,
plastics.
isn't
Look, the volume of plastics in the decommissioning oil and gas industry is a very small portion of the volume of plastics in our broader society. And I think worldwide there are opportunities and there's a need to do much better in terms of what we do with this material. We can't just keep either putting it in landfill or feeding it into an incinerator. So yeah, we need to do more in that space. We need to do more for the oil and gas industry as an organisation, as an industry that is seeing volumes of its own to manage in this space, the same as so many other industries need to as well. Demolition materials generate enormous amounts of plastics and polymers. The renewables industry at the moment is consuming an enormous amount of plastics and polymers in cables that are being installed and in the fabrication of the assemblies themselves. In the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, what's being built now will reach the end of its life as well. We'll have to go through this same challenge. So we're here now at the beginning of a movement, if you like, in terms of what we do with these plastics and polymers.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Build the capabilities for now and the future.
Yeah.
There's some good research coming out locally as well.
There is.
Through the NDRI,
Yep.
having recently delivered their risk assessment framework.
Yes.
How significant is this bit of work?
Look, the NDRI work is an incredibly important contributor to the knowledge that we need to make informed decisions in the decommissioning industry. The work that's gone on through NDRI over the last 5 or 6 years around, in the early days, marine connectivity and so forth, and now getting into the more granular things, looking at the risk assessment framework, which was released 4 or 5 months ago now. The work they're going into next year is an incredible contributor to underpin the decisions that we need to make around proposed end states for these facilities. We just need to make sure that we make the decisions on the right scientific basis, and having independent research, peer-reviewed independent research, which is published, which is public, which is made available to any party anywhere in the world that wants to access it, is a critical piece of that whole puzzle around decommissioning. It helps to build trust. It helps people to look at it and say, well, here is the research. It will not fill every gap, but it is working very hard to fill as many of the gaps as it's able in the time available to it.
Absolutely. It goes without saying, all of NDRI's, or National Decommissioning Research Initiative's research, is available on the NDRI website. You've caught up with partners across Australia and internationally. You've been to Aberdeen, SPA, Houston. You've been all over. What were the common themes or concerns from the industry that you've heard?
It's an interesting one. I mean, yes, there's barely a day goes by that I wouldn't have a conversation either with an existing partner or with a company that's involved in decommissioning. There may not be a partner or a company that wants to get involved in decommissioning, and there are indeed a few common themes in there. The vast majority of the companies I speak with are for-profit businesses. They want to find ways to get a return on investment on the skills that they've built and the technologies that they've developed. And they're constantly scanning the world to find where the right markets are for their solutions, and also to see where the next opportunities are for them to evolve their technologies and maybe start to fill some gaps. We've found over the last couple of years a lot of enthusiasm for companies to come to Australia, which has been absolutely brilliant. We need all the help that we can get. We need all of we need that range of technologies and that range of solutions available and visible to the market here, so that our customers here, if you like, so the clients, the end users of all of this lot, can see what's available to them, can make the appropriate choices. And I think with the relatively nailed on time bounding that we have with the 135 guidelines from the regulators here and so forth, companies can look to Australia as a pretty solid investable location for a place to bring their solutions and technologies. That's not the case everywhere. There are a number of jurisdictions where, let's just say, schedules keep sliding, things keep moving to the right. There's been a pattern in a few jurisdictions of promising more work than actually appears, and that's for so many reasons. There's reasons why. There's so many reasons why companies would declare that they are planning on doing a certain amount of work, but then deferring that work year on year breeds a certain level of mistrust. And it also can end up with companies over-investing or over-capitalizing in their capability to address a market that maybe doesn't exist. So I think what we're seeing here in Australia, and I think what I'm seeing in a couple of other markets as well, is that we and they are benefiting where they are getting on with the work from other jurisdictions who are over-promising in terms of the workload that they've had. which means that, so for right now, we're seeing companies come here and go to some other countries because it's a safe, I wouldn't say a safe haven, but it's a safer place because the market is here. Doesn't mean that everybody will get a piece of the pie, but at least there's a pie there and it's a real pie. And you at least get a chance to be considered with your solutions for it. So look, I think it's like every industry. There are lots of opportunities. There's lots of challenges. Not everybody will win every project that they tender on. Some may win more projects than they expected, and some will lose more projects than they expected, and that's the nature of the world. But what we have here is probably one of the most realistic forecast workloads, and consequently a pretty solid foreseeable pipeline of work here out for the rest of this decade and into the early part of the next decade to progress all of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are an international organisation listening to this, by all means, have a conversation with us.
Yep, find time somewhere.
We champion collaboration as a foundation of decommissioning. Have you seen any particular examples of collaboration done well this year?
Yeah, there's been a few. I mean, I think decommissioning. I've been in the resources industry now for more years than I care to remember. It's something like 45, 46 years. I think I've been in the resources industry. Decommissioning as a sector is probably the most collaborative of all, because no one company has all the solutions. No one company wants to have all the solutions either. And consequently, there is a real opportunity and appetite for people to work together and share insights, share technologies. And through that, I'm seeing a lot more here, and a lot more openness and a lot more willingness and a lot more enthusiasm around collaboration than you would see in most other sectors of the industry. We see it largely in things like supply chain, where vessel operators will collaborate with technology companies, who will then collaborate with more technology companies who work very closely with the ports and with civil infrastructure to then receive materials, and they then collaborate very closely with the demolition contractors, the environmental consultancies, the environmental support agencies and businesses, and then the recycling industry. It's much more of a collaborative ecosystem. We don't see many organizations wanting to have the whole sort of vertical integration of everything that they do. So there's still a strong recognition here that there are specialists, and that those specialists all have a part. I won't single anyone out because I don't think it's fair, but I've not seen very many instances of people not wanting to collaborate. Let's put it that way. I would say more so here than any other sector that I've ever been involved with. There is an appetite and a desire to collaborate.
Beautiful. You mentioned earlier, or you touched on independence being an important factor for the NDRI. Independence, of course, is important for us as a not-for-profit industry body as well. We welcomed earlier this year Simon Kemp from Exxon to our industry advisory committee. How are you finding the engagement from the committee and where that's taking us?
The committee's been great. That committee's been invaluable for us all the way through. We've had members come, we've had members go. Simon replaced Richard this year. We also said goodbye to Jay Southwell from Baker Hughes this year as well. And everybody that's been involved in our advisory committee has been incredibly open with their thoughts, their suggestions, bringing their insights from their role within the sector, sharing them with each other, sharing them with us, and helping us be the best organisation we can be to serve the broad needs of the industry. And the independence piece is such a strong piece for us. We probably differentiate ourselves more than almost anything else through the fact that we are independent from each different sector of the industry while still working with, and as best as we can, supporting the needs of every sector within the industry. So we work closely with the operators, we work closely with the supply chain, with the service sector. We have good, open dialogue and relationships with state, federal, international governments, with the regulators, and with the research community as well, such as it is. And we can only do that through our independence. The fact that we are so strongly independent means that that those conversations that we want to have and need to have to help to support the growth of the industry here, we couldn't have them without the independence. And having a group like the advisory committee in there that we can test ideas on, the same as we test ideas on a daily basis with everybody that we meet and everybody that we talk with, it just lets us be stronger and better at what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'll start to slowly wind this up because we've got a Christmas party to get to.
We have.
Looking ahead, we've got a couple of big projects in the pipeline for early 2026. What impacts do you think they'll have for our industry?
Yeah, we've got some really interesting things coming along for 2026 that we've been working on, some of them all the way through 2025. In no particular order, we've been doing a lot of work looking at regulations in Australia. We'll have as comprehensive, I think, as we've been able to do, given our own limited resources, a review of the regulatory landscape for all of the offshore jurisdictions across Australia. So looking at the regulations, really quantifying and identifying the regulations that apply to decommissioning. So international accords and agreements, federal regulations, state and territory regulations, and to a certain extent as well some of the local regulations. And we're looking at Northern Territory, Western Australia, South Australia and Victoria through all of this lot as well. That'll be out, I'm hoping, around about the end of the first quarter of next year. That will give us then a point that we can start conversations with the different regulatory agencies and the organisations that have to work within those regulations, just to try and make sure that they're fit for purpose, to streamline some of them, because it is a very cumbersome regulatory environment that this industry operates within. So we've got that one coming along. We've been working for second half of 2025 on a revisit of the ports for Western Australia. We've gone back to look at the previous work to make sure that it's contemporary. There's some changes going on in the ports landscape here in Western Australia that we need to make sure decommissioning gets considered and appropriately discussed in all of that lot. That's going to be during the first half of next year. That one will come out. And then beyond that, there's a whole bunch of other things that we haven't even really started on yet. But the two other bits that are probably going to be the most useful for most of our partners we'll have a refresh of the data for the offshore forward outlook coming out during January, and that will be a catch-up, if you like, so it'll give us a reforecast. So it'll see where the changes have been and give us a new outlook that we can look at, again, to support planning for the future. And we're also aiming to have the onshore forward outlook start to be rolled out by the middle of the year. And that'll be a progressive exercise across the country. Start with Western Australia and then work our way west to east across the country is my plan on that one. And those are just sort of the four big headline items, I guess, that would be in there. Next year we've got similar agenda of conferences and events. We've got EXA on in March. We've got the DNA, which we talked about earlier, coming up in June. This year we've had a lot of events here in Perth. Next year we don't have quite as many. The SPE event that was here in November will be elsewhere next year. I'm still not exactly sure where, but still, there's going to be a lot going on here as well. So yeah, it's going to be another busy year.
And we'll hopefully have a new team member joining us soon.
Yeah, that's the expectation. Just as a teaser, middle of the year we lost Sean Sadler, our first general manager. He moved on to new pastures, and caught up with him the other month, and he seems very happy in where he's gone. He left a big hole. We're working with somebody we have now lined up to join us in January as a new GM. It'll be great.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll hopefully have a little podcast with them.
We hope to. Yes. Once we give them time just to get over the shock of joining us and seeing everything that we have going on. But yeah, new general manager. It's been a year of change at the team level as well. We've had Samara, our wonderful project manager, is now a month into maternity leave. So she's got a project of her own to deal with for the next few months. I'm looking forward to welcoming her back toward the end of 2026. We've had a few other things go on in the team as well that have been, that you just have to deal with. It's part of life as things go forwards. But yes, very, very much looking forward to getting on with 2026 and all the thrills and spills that'll go with it.
Well, that was going to be my final question, but you just answered it. What are you looking forward to? But anyway, there it is.
Yeah.
Getting on with it.
Yeah, more of the same. I think 2026, I'm expecting will be a year of further maturity. I hope we will start to see some of those challenges that we talked about earlier around plastics and polymers and cleaning and recycling and so forth. I hope we'll start to see some reality come through on those, and some solutions start to reach the market, which won't just be helpful for decommissioning, they'll be helpful for the broader industry as well. So I know there are some international companies, for instance, with pyrolysis technologies, who are looking at Australia as an opportunity for them to potentially expand into. Similarly, we need to crack some of those questions around decontamination once we remove equipment. It's going to be another fun year.
Absolutely. Lots to look forward to, lots to do. I'll leave it at that, I think. We could probably keep talking, but as I said, we've got a CODA Christmas party to get to.
We do.
So thanks for listening in for the year. And of course, if you're a CODA partner listening to this and you'd like to get on the show, have a conversation with us, we're more than happy to. So please feel free to reach out. And
Yep. We are here to help. We're here to help to grow the industry.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of fantastic technology, new innovative stuff out there, and we'd love to talk about it. We'd love to hear about it, and we'd love to share it. So we've had some fantastic technologies on our webinar series, which you can find on YouTube. But there's truly some really great pieces of technology that's doing wonders for things like P&A, for example. But anyway, thanks so much for listening in, and I guess we'll
catch you on the next one.
We'll catch you in the next year. So everybody, happy holidays. Stay safe. Take care.
Thanks, Pav. Thank you.
Thanks, Francis.